At Thanksgiving turkey dinner, my daughter-in-law snarled, "Don't bother coming to the lake house for Christmas. You're an annoying old man." I quietly spent it alone in my study. But at 12:01 a.m., my son called in hysterics. "Dad, you're on Fox News headlines. What on earth did you do?" They all froze in horror. My name is Ronald Cooper. I'm 67 years old, and I live in a 3-story house overlooking Lake Tahoe in South Lake Tahoe, California. For 38 years, I worked as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Northern District of California, specializing in financial crimes and money laundering. Retired since 2019. These days, I spend my time fishing on the lake, restoring antique furniture in my workshop, and adding to my collection of first edition detective novels. Chandler and Hammett, mostly. I always thought the quiet life would be boring after decades in federal court. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. My son Kyle is 41. Good kid, or at least he used to be. I remember when he was 7, running down our old driveway in Sacramento every time I came home from work, arms wide open, yelling, "Daddy's home!" Those days feel like someone else's life now. Everything changed 5 years ago when he met Alicia Welch at some corporate networking event in Sacramento. She was beautiful, I'll give her that, polished. The kind of woman who knows exactly how her smile looks and uses it like currency. I saw through it immediately. 38 years prosecuting white-collar criminals teaches you to read people. The way her eyes would calculate before she spoke. How she'd laugh at Kyle's jokes, but her eyes stayed cold, scanning the room for someone more useful. The first time Kyle brought her to Tahoe for a weekend, she spent the entire visit photographing the house, asking questions about square footage, property value, when I'd bought it. "Just curious," she'd said, flashing that practice smile. "Kyle's told me so much about this place." "I bought it in 1992 for $340,000, I told her, watching her eyes light up. "Current appraisal is $2.4 million. She'd actually gasped. Kyle thought she was impressed by the view. They got married 6 months later. Small wedding. Alicia insisted on intimate. Translation: she didn't want to spend money on Kyle's side of the family when she could use it to impress her own friends. I paid for the rehearsal dinner anyway. $12,000 at some fusion restaurant in Sacramento, where the portions were smaller than the prices. The hints started slowly. Casual comments about how big houses are such a burden at your age, Ronald. Questions about my will, wrapped in concern. "Kyle and I just want to make sure you've got everything in order. Estate planning is so important." She'd even suggested I move into a more manageable condo in Sacramento, closer to them. "We could help you downsize. The real estate market in Tahoe is incredible right now." I'd smiled politely and changed the subject. Every single time. Kyle became a stranger. He stopped calling unless Alicia was there, feeding him lines, stopped visiting unless she orchestrated it. The man who used to fish with me every summer now couldn't spare a weekend. "Alicia has this charity event," he'd say. Or, "Alicia planned a trip with her friends." Always Alicia, but I kept my mouth shut. You don't survive 4 decades in federal prosecution without learning patience. I watched. I waited. I told myself it was a phase, that Kyle would wake up eventually. Then came Thanksgiving. The day before, Kyle called. "Dad, Alicia wants to apologize for being distant. She's really been stressed with work and her charity foundation. We'd like to come for Thanksgiving dinner. Bring the kids. Make it a real family holiday." I should have known better, but hope makes fools of us all. I spent 2 days preparing. Made the turkey using my mother's recipe, the one she'd taught me when I was Kyle's age. Herb butter under the skin, apple cider brine, the whole traditional spread. Set the dining room table with the good china, the kind you only use a few times a year. Put out the decorations. Made sure the kids' old bedrooms were ready, just in case they wanted to stay over. They arrived late afternoon. Lisa and Jacob, my grandchildren, 12 and 9, ran in first, excited to see the lake. Good kids, despite their mother. Kyle followed, carrying bags of store-bought wine that probably cost more than my entire Thanksgiving budget. Then Alicia, in a designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, carrying nothing. Dinner started well enough. The kids talked about school. Kyle asked about my fishing. Alicia smiled and nodded. playing the role of dutiful daughter-in-law. I should have recognized the performance. I'd seen hundreds of defendants do the same thing in court, the pleasant mask right before they show their true face. I made the mistake of mentioning Christmas. I was thinking, I said, passing the mashed potatoes, maybe you could all come back for Christmas. Spend a few days. The kids could go sledding. We could make it a real tradition again, like when Kyle was little. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Alicia set down her fork with a precise little click against the plate. "Oh, Ronald," she said my name like it tasted bad. "About that. We've been meaning to talk to you." Kyle's face went pale. He stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. "Don't bother coming to the lake house for Christmas," Alicia continued, her voice shifting from syrup to steel. "You're an annoying old man, and frankly, the kids want a real holiday, not your boring stories about the old days and your dusty books." Lisa and Jacob froze, forks halfway to their mouths. Kyle's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. I felt something click inside my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd felt that before when Kyle first started changing. This was different. This was the sound of a decision being made. "I see," I said quietly, folding my napkin with deliberate care. "Well, I appreciate you being honest. Have a good evening." Alicia blinked, surprised I wasn't arguing. Kyle finally looked up, confusion crossing his face, maybe even guilt. But he still didn't speak, didn't defend me, didn't tell his wife she'd crossed a line. They left 20 minutes later, Alicia cheerful again, as if she'd just accomplished something important. The kids hugged me goodbye, confused and sad. Kyle mumbled something about, "I'll call you next week," but we both knew he wouldn't, not unless Alicia told him to. I stood in the doorway, watching their rented SUV pull away, taillights disappearing down Lakeshore Boulevard. Then I walked up to my study on the 3rd floor, poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey, and sat in my leather chair facing the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. Beautiful, peaceful, empty. For the first time in 5 years, I felt something other than sadness about my son's marriage. I felt clarity. You know what's terrifying for criminals? When a prosecutor knows exactly where to look. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in my study until 3 in the morning, staring at the lake, whiskey untouched on the side table. My mind wasn't on the insult. I'd been called worse things in courtrooms by people facing 20 years. What bothered me was the pattern. Alicia's words kept replaying, but underneath them I heard other things. Months of comments, questions, hints that I'd filed away without examining them closely. "That's a valuable property, Ronald. Must be hard to maintain at your age. Have you thought about what happens to the house when you're gone? Estate taxes can be brutal. Kyle mentioned you don't have a revocable trust. You really should get one. We know a great estate attorney." I'd thought she was just greedy, waiting for the inheritance like a vulture circling. Annoying, but legal. Lots of people marry for money. But the next morning, something nagged at me. I made coffee, sat at my desk, and did what I'd done for 38 years. I started looking at the details. Kyle and Alicia rented their house on Riverside Drive in Sacramento. I knew that because Kyle had mentioned it casually last year. "Can't afford to buy yet," he'd said, saving up for a down payment. Kyle made $78,000 a year as an insurance manager. Alicia worked as a PR manager for some small firm. I'd guess maybe 52,000. Combined income around 130. Sacramento's expensive, but not that expensive for a rental. Yet Alicia drove a brand new BMW X5. I'd looked it up once out of curiosity. $68,000. She wore Prada bags, Louboutin shoes. Her Instagram, yes, I'd looked. Prosecutors verify everything, showed weekly dinners at restaurants where entrees started at $75. Vegas trips, Napa Valley wine tours, a weekend in Carmel. The math didn't work. I opened my laptop and started the way I always started financial investigations. Social media. People are astonishingly careless about what they post online. Alicia's Facebook profile was a masterclass in performance. Photos of her at charity galas, holding oversized checks, giving speeches at fundraising events. Everything centered around something called Light of Hope Foundation. I clicked through to the foundation's page. Professional website, slick branding. dedicated to helping Sacramento's homeless population through direct aid and community programs. Alicia was listed as executive director. Kyle was treasurer. The foundation claimed to have raised $340,000 over 2 years. I felt that old familiar tingle at the base of my skull, the one I used to get when a defendant's financial disclosure didn't match their tax returns. I spent the next 2 hours digging, found their Form 990, the public tax filing every nonprofit has to submit to the IRS. It's public record, available to anyone who knows where to look. According to the 990, Light of Hope Foundation had raised $89,000, not $340,000, 89, a $251,000 discrepancy. I sat back in my chair, staring at the numbers, made myself stay objective. Could be a mistake. Could be poor record keeping. Could be the website was aspirational, counting pledges that hadn't come through. Could be. But 38 years of prosecuting financial crimes had taught me, when the numbers don't match, it's never a mistake. It's a system. I remembered Veronica Morales. We'd worked together when she was an agent with IRS criminal investigation back in the mid-2000s. Sharp, relentless, treated tax fraud like a personal insult. She'd left the IRS 5 years ago to start her own private investigation firm in Sacramento. I found her number in my old contacts. "Ronald Cooper," she answered on the second ring. "I'll be damned. Thought you'd retired to some cabin in the woods." "Close. Lake Tahoe. How are you, Veronica?" "Busy. Rich people keep doing stupid things with money, so business is good." She paused. "This isn't a social call, is it?" "I need your help. Unofficial and fast." There was a long silence. Then, "What kind of help?" "The kind you're good at. Financial investigation, nonprofit organization, possible fraud." "IRS case?" "Not yet. Maybe never. I just need to know if I'm seeing things clearly or if retirement has made me paranoid." Another pause. "Who's the target?" I closed my eyes. My daughter-in-law, and possibly my son. "Ah!" Her voice softened slightly. "Want to tell me what happened?" I gave her the abbreviated version. The Thanksgiving insult. The lifestyle that didn't match the income. The discrepancy in the foundation's numbers. "Send me everything you've got," Veronica said. "I'll take a look. If there's something there, we'll find it." "Thank you." "Ronald, are you sure you want to do this? If they're dirty and we prove it, that's your son." I looked out at the lake. The water was dark gray under cloudy skies, waves choppy from the wind. "That's exactly why I have to do it," I said. "He chose the wrong side. Someone needs to show him there are consequences." After I hung up with Veronica, I called Gerald Bishop. We'd worked together in the U.S. Attorney's Office for 15 years, before he left for private practice in San Francisco. Criminal defense now, ironically, defending the same kinds of people we used to prosecute. "Gerald, hypothetically speaking, if someone runs a nonprofit in California, what filing requirements do they have?" Hypothetically, he sounded amused. "Form 990 with the IRS, Statement of Information with the California Attorney General, Annual Registration Renewal. Why, you thinking of starting a charity?" "Just curious about compliance requirements." "Uh-huh. Ronald, you've never been just curious about anything in your life. What's this really about?" "Let's just say I might need your expertise soon, on the other side of the table this time." He laughed. "You're investigating someone." "Hypothetically." "Fine. Keep your secrets. But when this blows up, and it will because you're involved, call me. I'll help however I can." That evening I sat in my study with a legal pad, writing down everything I knew. Every comment Alicia had made about my house. Every question about my estate. Every luxury purchase I'd noticed. Every discrepancy between the foundation's website and their tax filing. At the top of the page I wrote, "When numbers don't match, it's not a mistake. It's a system." I'd unraveled 127 money laundering cases in my career, seen every variation of the scheme. Fake charities were a classic. Collect donations from well-meaning people. Skim most of it for personal use. Show just enough legitimate activity to avoid immediate scrutiny. The trick was always in the details. Shell companies to hide transfers, consulting fees to yourself, administrative costs that were really personal expenses. If Alicia was running a scam, she'd have left tracks. People always did. I just needed to find them. Outside my window, the lake had gone completely dark, just tiny lights from distant houses dotting the shoreline like scattered stars. I thought about Kyle as a child, the way he'd believed in fairness, in doing the right thing, the way he'd cried when he was 8 and accidentally broke a neighbor's window, insisted on apologizing and paying for it with his allowance. Where had that boy gone? I set down my pen and picked up my phone, scrolled to Kyle's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button. Then I put the phone down. No, not yet. If I was right, if they were dirty, confronting them now would only give them time to cover their tracks, destroy evidence, lawyer up before I had anything solid. I'd learned that lesson in court 1,000 times. Never show your hand until you've got all the cards. I opened my laptop again and started a new document. Investigation notes, Light of Hope Foundation. Began typing everything I knew, every question I needed answered, every piece of information Veronica would need. The foundation was incorporated in 2022. 2 years. Alicia as executive director, Kyle as treasurer. If they'd been skimming for 2 years, there would be a pattern. Repeated transfers. Consistent amounts. The kind of systematic theft that left a trail? I smiled grimly at the screen. You know what criminals forget. Prosecutors are patient. We don't rush. We build cases brick by brick, document by document, until the wall is so solid there's no way through it. And I'd just started building. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows of my study. The lake was invisible now, swallowed by darkness. But I could feel it there, cold and deep and patient, just like me. A week later, Veronica pulled up to my house in a silver Audi. I watched from the third-floor window as she got out, pulled a leather messenger bag from the passenger seat, and looked up at the house with an appraising eye. Always the investigator. I met her at the door. She'd aged well, still had that sharp, focused look that made defendants nervous in interrogation rooms. Her handshake was firm. "Ronald, been too long." "5 years. Come in." I led her upstairs to my study. She paused at the doorway, taking in the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the antique desk, the panoramic windows overlooking the lake. "Nice setup. Retirement looks good on you." "Most days." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Coffee?" "Black, thanks." I poured from the pot I'd made earlier, handed her a mug. We sat. She pulled out a notepad. "So, your daughter-in-law. Tell me everything." I'd prepared for this. Organized my thoughts like I used to organize case files. Started with the basics. When Kyle met Alicia, the quick marriage, the gradual change in my son. Then the pattern of behavior, the questions about my estate, the hints about downsizing, the obvious discrepancy between their income and lifestyle. "And this charity foundation?" Veronica asked, scribbling notes. I turned my laptop toward her, showed her the Light of Hope Foundation website. She scrolled through it, face expressionless. Clicked through photo galleries of Alicia at fundraising events, always perfectly styled, always holding those oversized ceremonial checks. "Claims they've raised $340,000 over 2 years," I said. Veronica's eyebrow went up. "And the $990?" I pulled up the tax filing. $89,000. She was quiet for a long moment, studying the numbers. Then she looked up at me, and I saw that familiar gleam, the one she used to get when we'd found the thread that would unravel an entire criminal enterprise. $251,000, she said softly. "That's not a rounding error, Ronald." "No, it's not." "You understand what you're asking me to do? If they're dirty and we prove it. That's my son in the crosshairs. I know." I met her gaze steadily. "But if he's breaking federal law, he needs to face consequences. That's what I taught him growing up. Apparently he forgot." Veronica nodded slowly. "Okay, give me 2 weeks. I'll dig into their finances, trace the foundation's money, see where it's actually going. If there's fraud here, we'll find it." "How much do you need up front? For you?" "Nothing. We'll settle up when I'm done." She stood, tucked her notepad into her bag. "Ronald, are you prepared for what might happen if this is real?" I thought about Kyle's face at Thanksgiving, staring at his plate while his wife insulted me. Thought about Lisa and Jacob, my grandchildren, growing up watching their parents steal from people who thought they were helping the homeless. I've never been more prepared for anything in my life, I said. After Veronica left, I stood at the window watching her car disappear down Lakeshore Boulevard. My phone rang. Kyle. "Hey, Dad." His voice was cautious. "Just wanted to check in. See how you're doing after Thanksgiving." Interesting. Alicia must have realized she'd gone too far. Sent Kyle to smooth things over. "I'm fine, son. How are the kids?" "Good, good." Lisa made honor roll. "Jacob's doing great in soccer." A pause. "Listen, Dad, about what Alicia said, it's forgotten." The lie came easily. "She was stressed. I understand." Relief flooded his voice. "Oh, good. I mean, yeah, she's been under a lot of pressure with the foundation. They're planning this big fundraiser in January, trying to expand their outreach programs." I let him talk, making appropriate sounds of interest. All the while, I was listening for the details beneath the words. The foundation was expanding. More money flowing through it. More opportunities for theft. "That's wonderful," I said when he finished. "You must be proud of her." "Yeah, she works really hard." He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "Anyway, I just wanted to make sure we're okay." "We're fine, Kyle." After we hung up, I sat back in my chair. The irony wasn't lost on me. Kyle calling to make peace while I was building a case against him and his wife. But that's the thing about crime. It always feels justified to the people committing it. Alicia probably told herself she deserved that money, that she was smarter than everyone else, that no one would ever catch her. She'd never met someone like Veronica Morales. The next 2 weeks crawled by. I fell into my routine, morning coffee overlooking the lake, afternoons restoring an antique writing desk in my workshop, evenings reading Chandler by the fireplace, but my mind was never fully present. I kept thinking about what Veronica might be finding. Kyle called twice more. Brief conversations, nothing important, just checking in, making sure I wasn't upset. I played the role of forgiving father perfectly. On the evening of the 13th day, my phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. "Got something. Big. Coming tomorrow." I didn't sleep that night. She arrived the next afternoon carrying a leather portfolio that looked significantly thicker than her notepad from 2 weeks ago. Her expression was grim. "You were right," she said without preamble. "It's worse than you thought." We sat in my study. She opened the portfolio and spread documents across my desk like a prosecutor, laying out evidence, bank statements, corporate filings, transfer records. "The Light of Hope Foundation is registered as a 501c3 nonprofit," she began, "which means donations are tax deductible, and they're supposed to be using that money for charitable purposes. According to their website and marketing materials, they've collected $340,000 over 2 years. But the 990 shows 89,000, I finished. Exactly. That's $250,000 unaccounted for. So I started tracking the money. She pulled out a bank statement. The foundation has an account at Wells Fargo, regular deposits from donors, small amounts mostly, $50 here, $100 there, people who think they're helping homeless families. Her voice had gone cold. She hated this kind of crime, stealing from people who could least afford it. "Where'd the money go?" I asked. 3 shell companies in Nevada. She laid out 3 more documents. Bright Future Consulting, Summit Advisory Services, and Clearwater Solutions, all registered within 6 months of each other, all listing different addresses, but when you Google them, they're either empty lots or mailbox stores. Classic money laundering. Create fake companies, pay them for fake services, pocket the cash. The foundation paid these companies for consulting services and administrative support. Veronica continued. Over $523,000 total. I blinked. More than they even claimed to raise? They collected more than they reported. Some donors gave cash at events. Those donations never made it to the official books. She pulled out another document. And here's where it gets interesting. The shell companies? They all have the same 2 account signatories. She slid the paper toward me. I already knew what I'd see. Alicia Cooper, Kyle Cooper. The money goes into the shell companies, then gets transferred to their personal accounts, Veronica said. Alicia's primarily, but Kyle's too. They've been systematically stealing from their own charity for 2 years. I sat back, processing. $500,000. Federal fraud. Interstate wire transfers. This wasn't just unethical. It was a federal crime with serious prison time. You're sure about this? I asked. Every detail? I've triple-checked everything. The evidence is solid. I looked at the papers spread across my desk. My son's name on corporate documents for fake companies. Transfer records showing him helping his wife steal from people who thought they were helping the homeless. Evidence of systematic, deliberate fraud. When had he become this person? What are you thinking? Veronica asked quietly. I met her eyes. I'm thinking that I spent 38 years putting people in prison for exactly this kind of crime, and that if anyone else brought me this evidence, I'd tell them they had a federal case. Airtight. And because it's your son? Because it's my son, I said slowly. I need to be absolutely certain. Can you prove intent? Can you prove they knew this was illegal? Veronica pulled out one more document, an email, printed, from Alicia to Kyle. Make sure the transfers look like legitimate consulting payments. Keep them under $10K each to avoid reporting requirements. We need to be smart about this. Structuring. Deliberately keeping transactions below reporting thresholds to avoid detection. That showed consciousness of guilt. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, just cold certainty. Federal crime, I said. Wire fraud, money laundering, probably tax evasion too. What do you want to do? I looked out at the lake. The water was gray under cloudy skies, choppy from winter wind, cold, unforgiving. How long would it take you to compile this into a formal report? Something I could present to federal authorities? 3 days, maybe 4. Do it. I turned back to her. Include everything. Every transaction, every transfer, every piece of evidence. Make it so thorough that even a rookie prosecutor could get a conviction. Veronica studied my face. You're sure? This is your son, Ronald. There's no coming back from this. I thought about Kyle at 7 years old, crying because he'd broken a neighbor's window, insisting on apologizing, on making it right. I thought about the man he'd become, weak, complicit, helping his wife steal from the vulnerable. That's exactly why I have to do this, I said. He chose the wrong side. Veronica left with her portfolio of evidence, promising to return with a complete investigative report. I sat alone in my study as darkness fell over the lake, thinking about what came next. This wasn't just about revenge. If I'd wanted simple revenge, I could have exposed them publicly, ruined their reputations, made their lives miserable. But that wouldn't stop them. Alicia would just find another scheme, another way to feed her greed. Kyle would follow along, too weak to say no. No. This needed to be permanent, legal, unassailable. I needed to build a case that would put them in federal prison. The thought should have hurt more than it did. But I'd spent 4 decades in prosecution. I knew the difference between justice and sentiment. Justice required hard choices. It required putting the law above personal comfort, even when the law meant turning in your own son. I called Gerald Bishop the next morning. We'd worked together for 15 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office before he'd gone into private criminal defense. If anyone would understand what I was doing, it would be Gerald. Ronald Cooper, he answered. Twice in 2 weeks. Should I be worried? I need some advice, hypothetically. Ah, still being cagey. I could hear him smiling. What's the hypothetical situation? Someone discovers evidence of federal fraud, charity scam, money laundering through shell companies, interstate wire transfers. Very solid evidence, but the perpetrators are close to them. Family. A long pause. How close? Immediate family. Another pause. And this someone is asking whether they should report it to federal authorities? Hypothetically. Gerald sighed. Ronald, I know what you're doing, and I'm going to give you the same advice I'd give any client. Are you absolutely certain about the evidence? As certain as I've ever been about any case, because once you make this report, it's out of your hands. Federal prosecutors don't care about family relationships. If the evidence is there, they'll pursue charges, and federal conviction rates are, 93%? 94.6%, I corrected. Right. So your family member goes to prison for years. Probably federal prison, which is no joke. He paused. Is that really what you want? I looked out at the lake. Ice was forming along the shoreline now, delicate crystals catching the morning light. What I want, I said carefully, is for people who commit crimes to face consequences. That's what I dedicated my career to. I can't very well make an exception just because the criminal is related to me. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Then, okay, if you're going to do this, and it sounds like you've already decided, you need to do it right. Document everything. Chain of custody for all evidence. Make sure it was obtained legally. The defense will try to poke holes in your case. Claim the evidence was tainted because it came from a family member with a grudge. I'm using a private investigator. Former IRS criminal investigation. Everything's been obtained through legal channels. Public records. Legitimate inquiries. Good. And Ronald, when you submit this to the FBI and IRS, you need to include a statement explaining your relationship to the subjects. Full disclosure. It'll actually strengthen your credibility. Shows you're not acting out of malice, but out of genuine concern for the law. That makes sense. One more thing, his voice softened. Are you prepared for what this will do to your family? Because once this ball starts rolling, you can't stop it. Your son will know you're the one who turned him in. That relationship is over. I thought about Kyle's phone calls over the past 2 weeks, checking in, making sure I wasn't upset. All of it orchestrated by Alicia, no doubt. Damage control. Keep the old man happy so he doesn't cut them out of the will. That relationship ended at Thanksgiving, I said. I just didn't realize it yet. Over the next several days, I worked with Veronica to compile the evidence into an unassailable package. She'd done excellent work. Every transaction traced, every shell company exposed, every lie documented. The foundation claimed to run homeless shelters and food banks. In reality, they'd never operated a single program. Every dollar donated had gone into Alicia and Kyle's pockets. $523,000. Stolen from people who thought they were helping the most vulnerable members of society. We organized it like a federal indictment. Executive summary. Timeline of events. Evidence exhibits. Bank records. Corporate filings. Email communications. Even photographs from Alicia's social media showing her wearing designer clothes and dining at expensive restaurants. Lifestyle inconsistent with her legitimate income. I wrote the cover letter myself, explaining who I was, my background as a federal prosecutor, my relationship to the subjects under investigation, making it clear that I had no personal vendetta, just a civic duty to report suspected federal crimes. The letter ended. I understand the serious nature of these allegations, particularly given my familial relationship to the subjects. However, I believe the evidence speaks for itself. The law must apply equally to all citizens, regardless of personal connections. On the evening we finished, Veronica and I sat in my study with 2 thick folders, one labeled IRS Criminal Investigation Division, the other labeled FBI Sacramento Field Office. "This is airtight," Veronica said. "If they don't pursue this, I'll eat my badge." "They'll pursue it." I'd worked with federal prosecutors for nearly 4 decades. I knew what got their attention. Interstate fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, the trifecta. "When are you going to submit it?" I looked at the folders. Once I handed these over, there was no going back. Kyle and Alicia would be investigated. Likely indicted. Probably convicted. Federal prison had a minimum of 85% time served. No parole, no early release. If they got 10 years, they'd serve at least 8.5. My son, in federal prison, because of me. "Soon," I said. Veronica stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "Ronald, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. People like Alicia, they don't stop unless someone stops them. And Kyle, maybe prison will wake him up. Give him a chance to become the man his father raised him to be." After she left, I sat with the folders on my desk. My phone rang. Kyle again. "Hey, Dad. Just calling to see if you want to come to Sacramento for Christmas. Alicia feels really bad about Thanksgiving. She wants to make it up to you." I nearly laughed. Christmas. They wanted me to come to their house for Christmas. Probably so they could butter me up, make sure I wasn't planning to change my will. "That's kind of you," I said. "But I think I'll spend Christmas here this year. Quiet holiday by the lake." "Oh, okay." He sounded disappointed. Or maybe that was Alicia in the background, disappointed. "Well, maybe we could come to you. The kids would love to see the house again. Let's see how schedules work out." Non-committal. Diplomatic. We talked for a few more minutes. He told me about Lisa's school concert, Jacob's soccer tournament, normal grandfather-son conversation, as if everything was fine, as if his wife wasn't a criminal and he wasn't her accomplice. When I hung up, I looked at the folders again, picked up the one for the FBI, opened it, read through the executive summary one more time. The evidence was flawless. The case was unassailable. Any prosecutor in the country would jump at this. I closed the folder, set it back on the desk. The phone rang again, this time a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Cooper? This is Shannon Clark. I'm an attorney in Sacramento. Your son Kyle gave me your number. I wanted to introduce myself. I handle estate planning, and Kyle mentioned you might be interested in setting up a trust for your grandchildren. Ah, there it was. They'd sicked a lawyer on me, probably hoping to get information about my estate, my plans, my assets. That's thoughtful, I said, but I already have estate planning handled. Thank you. Of course. Well, if you ever need a review of your documents, or if you'd like to discuss options for minimizing estate taxes, I'd be happy to. I appreciate the offer. I'm all set. After I hung up, I smiled grimly. They really thought I was just a foolish old man, someone to be managed and manipulated. They had no idea what was coming. I spent that evening organizing my own documentation, timeline of events, records of every conversation with Kyle and Alicia, screenshots of Alicia's social media posts, my own statement about discovering the discrepancies and hiring Veronica to investigate. This wasn't just about turning over evidence. This was about protecting myself. Gerald was right. The defense would claim I had a grudge, that I'd fabricated evidence out of spite. I needed to prove that every step I'd taken was reasonable, legal, and motivated by genuine concern, rather than malice. By midnight, I had everything ready. 2 complete sets of evidence, my own supporting documentation, cover letters for both agencies. All I had to do was deliver them. I stood at my window, looking out at the lake. The moon was nearly full, casting silver light across the water. Beautiful, peaceful, deceptive, just like Alicia. I thought about my career. 127 money laundering cases, hundreds of defendants. Some of them had families too. Children who cried when their parents were sentenced, spouses who begged for mercy. I'd never wavered then. Justice was justice. Why should I waver now? My phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. Thanks for understanding about Christmas, Dad. We love you. I stared at those 3 words. We love you. Did they? Or was that just another manipulation, another way to keep me compliant while they stole and schemed? I thought about what Veronica had said. People like Alicia don't stop unless someone stops them. And I thought about what Gerald had said. Once you submit this, there's no going back. I picked up both folders, held them in my hands. The weight of them felt heavier than it should. Then I set them down, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow. I'd decide tomorrow. But we both knew that was a lie. I'd already decided. The moment I'd hired Veronica. The moment I'd started building the case. Maybe even the moment Alicia had called me an annoying old man at Thanksgiving dinner. The decision was made. All that remained was following through. And that's when I understood exactly how I'd repay them. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with the cold, methodical machinery of federal justice. The same machinery I'd operated for 38 years. The next morning, I woke at dawn, showered, dressed in a suit, the first time I'd worn one since retirement. Dark gray, crisp white shirt, conservative tie. If I was going to deliver evidence to federal agencies, I'd do it properly. I made coffee, carried it to my study, and sat with the 2 folders on my desk. Opened each one, reviewed the contents one final time. Bank statements, corporate filings, transfer records, email evidence, Veronica's investigative report, my own sworn statement about discovering the discrepancies. Everything was there. Everything was perfect. At exactly 9:40 in the morning, I drove to Sacramento, 2 hours down from Tahoe, through pine forests that gradually gave way to valley flatlands. I kept the radio off, wanted silence to think. The IRS Criminal Investigation Office was downtown in a nondescript federal building. I walked in carrying the first folder, approached the security desk. I have evidence to submit regarding a federal fraud case, I told the guard. He looked at me, a 67-year-old man in a suit, speaking calmly, and picked up a phone. Let me get someone from CI. The agent who came down was younger than I expected. Late 30s, maybe. Sharp eyes, though. She introduced herself as Special Agent Martinez. You have evidence of fraud? She asked. Money laundering, charity scam, over $500,000. I handed her the folder. Everything's documented. Bank records, shell companies, interstate transfers, federal jurisdiction. She opened the folder, scanned the first few pages. Her expression shifted. Surprise, then interest. This is comprehensive? I spent 38 years as a federal prosecutor, I said, Northern District of California. I know what a solid case looks like. You're the one who submitted this? She looked at the cover letter, saw my relationship to the subjects. Your son and daughter-in-law? Yes. She studied my face for a long moment. Mr. Cooper, are you aware that if we pursue this, they could face significant federal prison time? I'm aware. That's why I need you to look at the evidence objectively. Don't dismiss it because of my relationship to them. Look at the facts. She nodded slowly. We'll review this thoroughly. If everything checks out, she paused. You understand this can't be undone once we start investigating? I understand. I left the IRS office and drove to the FBI Sacramento field office. Same procedure. Same kind of reaction from the agent who took the second folder. Same questions about my relationship to the subjects. Same warnings about consequences. The law applies equally to everyone, I told him, including family. On the drive back to Tahoe, my phone rang. Kyle. Hey, Dad. Just calling to check in. How are you? I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 11:15. I'd submitted the evidence less than 2 hours ago. I'm fine, son. Just running some errands. Good, good. Listen, Alicia wanted me to ask. We're planning a New Year's party. Small thing, just some friends from the foundation. Would you want to come? Might be a good chance to meet some of the people we work with. The foundation. The fake charity they'd been using to steal money. That's kind of you, I said, but I think I'll pass. Quiet New Year at home sounds better. Oh, okay. He sounded disappointed. Or maybe that was Alicia whispering in the background, disappointed. Well, if you change your mind, I'll let you know. After I hung up, I almost laughed. They had no idea. Absolutely no idea that I'd just handed federal agencies everything they needed to destroy them. The next 2 days crawled by. I tried to maintain my routine. Coffee, reading, working in my shop. But my mind kept drifting to Sacramento, to federal agents reviewing evidence, to prosecutors deciding whether to open an investigation. On the evening of the second day, my laptop chimed with an email notification. From IRS, CI, Sacramento IRS.gov. Subject, Case Acknowledgement. Mr. Cooper, your submission has been reviewed and accepted for investigation. Case number, IRS CI 2024-847 has been opened. An investigator will be assigned within 48 hours. Please note that you may be contacted for additional information or clarification as the investigation proceeds. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. I stared at the screen. Read it 3 times. They'd opened a case. It was real now. Official. 20 minutes later, another email, this one from the FBI. Your information regarding suspected federal fraud has been received and is being evaluated by our Sacramento office. A preliminary investigation has been initiated. We appreciate your detailed documentation and will contact you if additional information is needed. I sat back in my chair, looking out at the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water orange and gold. Beautiful evening. Peaceful. Kyle's life was about to implode, and he didn't even know it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what I'd set in motion. Federal investigators would start digging into the Light of Hope Foundation. They'd subpoena bank records, interview donors, trace every dollar. They'd build a case brick by brick, exactly the way I used to build cases. And then what? Indictments. Arrests. Trial. Conviction. Prison. My son. In federal prison. Because of me. I got up, went to my study, pulled a first edition Hammett off the shelf. The Maltese Falcon. Tried to read. Couldn't focus on the words. The phone rang. 3 a.m. Kyle again. Dad? Sorry to call so late. I couldn't sleep. Wanted to hear your voice. He sounded stressed. Worried. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. Everything's fine. Just work stuff. Alicia's been stressed about the foundation. Some of the paperwork doesn't match up right, and she's worried about the audit. Audit. They were worried about an audit. They should be worried about federal prison. I'm sure it'll work out, I said. Yeah, you're right. He paused. Dad, I know things have been weird between us lately, with Alicia and everything, but I want you to know that I love you. You're my father, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. My throat tightened. I know, Kyle. Good, that's good. Okay, I'll let you get back to sleep. Love you. Love you too. I sat there after he hung up, phone in my hand, staring at nothing. He loved me. He'd called at 3 in the morning just to say he loved me, and in a few weeks he'd know I was the one who'd turned him in. He'd hate me, probably for the rest of his life. But that was the price. That was what justice cost. The weekend passed, then the early part of the following week. Each day felt like waiting for a bomb to explode. I kept checking my email, my phone, waiting for... What? An update from the FBI? A call from Kyle saying they'd been questioned? Nothing. Federal investigations move slowly, I knew that. 38 years of prosecuting cases had taught me patience, but knowing didn't make the waiting easier. Wednesday evening, I was in my study reading Chandler when my laptop chimed again. Another email. Not from the IRS or FBI this time. A Google alert I'd set up weeks ago. Light of Hope Foundation. Puss, Sacramento. I clicked it. Fox News. Posted 17 minutes ago. Breaking federal investigation launched into Sacramento charity fraud. Over $500K allegedly laundered. My heart stopped. They'd leaked it. Someone at the FBI or IRS had leaked the investigation to the press. I clicked the article, read it quickly. Sources close to the investigation say the Light of Hope Foundation, a Sacramento-based nonprofit claiming to help homeless families, is under federal scrutiny for money laundering. Executive Director Alicia Cooper and Treasurer Kyle Cooper are suspected of diverting over $500,000 in charitable donations to personal accounts through shell companies. There was a photo. Alicia at one of her fundraising events, holding a ceremonial check, smiling that perfect, practiced smile. I checked the time. 6:18 in the evening. Kyle didn't know yet. He couldn't. The article had just been posted. I sat back, trying to process what this meant. The investigation was supposed to be confidential. They weren't supposed to announce it publicly until they had enough evidence for charges. But someone had talked, and now it was out there, on national news. My phone stayed silent for another 5 hours. At exactly 12:01 in the morning, it exploded with a call. Kyle. I let it ring twice before answering. Dad. His voice was hysteria, barely contained. Dad, are you watching the news? Are you seeing this? Seeing what? Fox News. We're on Fox News? They're saying we... He could barely get the words out. They're saying we stole money from the foundation, that we're being investigated by the FBI. I turned on my television, flipped to Fox News. The late-night anchor was reading the story. Behind him, a graphic, Sacramento Charity Fraud Investigation. I'm seeing it now, I said calmly. This is insane. Dad, someone did this. Someone made up lies about us and reported us to the FBI. Kyle, the FBI doesn't investigate based on lies. If they're looking into this, they have evidence. But we didn't... the foundation is legitimate. We help people. This is all a misunderstanding. On the TV screen, they were showing the foundation's website. Then bank transfer records, redacted but clearly showing large sums moving between accounts. Kyle, I need to ask you something. Did you and Alicia divert foundation money to personal accounts? Silence. Long, damning silence. It's not like that, he finally said, voice cracking. Alicia said it was okay. She said we were entitled to administrative fees. That's how nonprofits work. Everyone does it. $500,000 in administrative fees. The amounts got confused. She handles the books. I just sign where she tells me to. Of course he did. Just sign where she tells him to. Kyle, you need to get a lawyer. A good one. Don't talk to anyone without legal representation. A lawyer? Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. Then a lawyer will help you prove that. I could hear Alicia in the background now, her voice shrill, demanding to know what I was saying. I have to go, Kyle said. But Dad, this is going to be okay, right? They'll figure out it's a mistake? I looked at the TV screen. The anchor was bringing in a legal analyst to discuss potential charges. Wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, 20 years maximum federal prison time. Get a lawyer, Kyle, I said quietly. Then I hung up and turned off the phone. I didn't sleep. Sat in my study watching the news coverage multiply. Fox News first. Then CNN picked it up. MSNBC. By 3 in the morning, it was trending on social media. Sacramento charity scam. Light of Hope Foundation fraud. Someone had compiled Alicia's Instagram posts. All those photos of designer bags, expensive dinners, luxury vacations. Juxtaposed them with the foundation's claims about helping the homeless. The internet was doing what the internet does, tearing them apart. At dawn, my phone, still powered off, showed 43 missed calls when I turned it back on. 37 from Kyle. 6 from numbers I didn't recognize. 17 text messages from Kyle. Dad, please call me. We need help. This is getting worse. Alicia's losing it. They're saying we could go to prison. Dad, please. I didn't respond. What was there to say? At 8:30, Gerald Bishop called. Ronald, tell me you're watching the news. I am. Tell me that's not your son on Fox News. It is? A long pause. And tell me you didn't have anything to do with this investigation. I didn't answer. Christ, Ronald, you actually did it. You turned them in. They committed federal crimes. I reported it. That's what any citizen should do. That's your son. His voice rose. Your own son. Who was stealing from people who thought they were helping the homeless? Should I have ignored that because we're related? Gerald sighed heavily. No, you're right. But Ronald, you need to understand something. They're going to figure out it was you. And when they do, they're going to come after you hard. They'll try to claim you were complicit, that you knew all along, that you're only turning on them now out of spite. I have documentation proving I only discovered the fraud recently, and that I reported it immediately upon confirmation. You covered your bases. I always do. All right. Well, if they contact you for a statement, call me first. Don't talk to anyone without representation, even though you're the witness. Understood. After we hung up, I made coffee and returned to the TV. The morning shows were all covering it. Sacramento couple accused of stealing from homeless charity. One anchor called it particularly despicable that they'd targeted people trying to help the most vulnerable. My phone rang again. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Cooper? This is Shannon Clark. I'm an attorney representing Kyle and Alicia Cooper. I understand you're Kyle's father? That's correct. Mr. Cooper, my clients are in a very difficult situation. The allegations against them are serious, but I believe there may have been misunderstandings about nonprofit administrative procedures. I was hoping you might be willing to provide a character reference. No. I'm sorry? I won't be providing any references. If Kyle broke the law, he needs to face the consequences. Mr. Cooper, this is your son. I'm aware. Is there anything else? A pause. Mr. Cooper, do you know who reported this to federal authorities? You'd have to ask the FBI. My clients seemed to think it might have been someone in the family, someone who had access to their financial information. Then perhaps your clients should consider that family members have consciences too. I hung up. By mid-morning, the story had exploded further. A local Sacramento news station had interviewed donors to the Light of Hope Foundation, an elderly woman who'd given $200, thinking it would provide meals for homeless families, a young couple who donated $500 at a fundraising gala, all of them shocked, betrayed, angry. We trusted them, the elderly woman said, crying. We thought we were helping people. My phone buzzed. Text from Kyle. It was you, wasn't it? You did this to us. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, You did this to yourselves. I just made sure the consequences found you. The response came immediately. I hate you. I set the phone down, looked out at the lake. The water was gray under cloudy December skies, cold, unforgiving. Another text appeared. Alicia says you forged documents, that you made all this up because you're angry about Thanksgiving. We're going to prove it. We're going to show everyone you're lying. I didn't respond. Let them try. Every piece of evidence was authentic, obtained legally, verified by professional investigators. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Gerald called again. Their lawyer just contacted me. Shannon Clark. She's claiming you fabricated evidence out of family grudges. Let her claim it. The evidence speaks for itself. She wants to depose you, put you under oath, ask about your relationship with Kyle and Alicia, try to establish bias. Fine. I'll testify under oath that every document I submitted is authentic and was obtained through legal means. You're sure about this? Because once you're deposed, there's no going back. The family split becomes official. Public record. I thought about Kyle's text. I hate you. The family split is already official, I said. That evening, a new development. The local news reported that FBI agents had visited Kyle and Alicia's rented house in Sacramento, showed footage of agents and FBI windbreakers carrying boxes out of the residence. Alicia, visible briefly in the background through a window, looked like she'd aged 10 years in one day. No makeup, hair disheveled, face pale and drawn. Kyle appeared at the door briefly, tried to tell the agents they had the wrong people. This was all a mistake. One of the agents, patient but firm, said something that made Kyle's face crumple. He actually staggered, had to grab the doorframe for support. I watched that moment on loop. My son, destroyed, realizing that his life, as he knew it, was over. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just cold certainty that this was justice. At 9 that night, another text from Kyle. The lawyer says we're looking at 10-20 years federal prison. Federal prison, Dad, because of you. I replied, because of your choices. You chose to steal from people trying to help the homeless. You chose to lie. You chose to follow Alicia into a criminal scheme. These are your consequences, not mine. The response was immediate and incoherent. Lots of capital letters, accusations, threats, desperate pleas for me to fix this somehow. I turned off my phone. The next morning, more news. The California Attorney General had announced they were also investigating, looking into state-level charges beyond the federal case. The foundation's bank accounts had been frozen. Donors were being contacted for victim statements. And buried in one article, a detail that made me smile grimly, sources say the investigation began after a detailed complaint was filed by a former federal prosecutor who discovered irregularities in the foundation's finances. They knew, or they'd figured it out, that I was the source. My phone, turned back on, showed new messages. This one from Alicia's number, though clearly written by her. You vindictive old bastard. You did this because I called you annoying. You're willing to destroy your son's life over a dinner table insult. What kind of monster are you? I deleted it without responding. But then another text came through. This one different, from Kyle. The lawyer says our only option is a plea deal. Cooperate with investigators, admit guilt, hope for reduced sentences. She says Alicia could get 8-10 years. I could get 4-6. Federal prison, Dad. Real prison. And the kids? What happens to Lisa and Jacob? I stared at that last line. The kids, my grandchildren. I hadn't let myself think about them much, but they were innocent in all this. And when Kyle and Alicia went to prison, I called Gerald. I need a family law attorney, best one you know. Someone who handles custody cases. Custody? Ronald, what are you? When Kyle and Alicia are convicted, someone needs to take care of Lisa and Jacob. I'm going to petition for temporary custody. You're going to take custody of your son's children after you sent their parents to prison? They're my grandchildren. They're innocent, and they deserve stability. Ronald, he sighed, that's either the most compassionate thing I've ever heard or the most complicated. It's both. Can you get me that attorney or not? I'll make some calls. That afternoon, the final message from Kyle arrived. They're coming to arrest us tomorrow, Christmas Eve. The FBI called our lawyer. They said we can turn ourselves in voluntarily, or they'll come get us. On Christmas Eve, Dad, you did this. I hope you're happy. I wasn't happy, but I was certain. I typed one last response. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. The kids will be taken care of. I'll make sure of that. His response was just 4 words. I'll never forgive you. I set the phone down and walked to my window. The lake was dark now, just a few lights from distant houses reflecting on the water. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow my son would be arrested for federal crimes, and I would spend Christmas alone, knowing I'd destroyed my own family in the name of justice. The house felt very quiet, very empty, very cold. The next day, Christmas Eve, I woke early, made coffee in the silent kitchen, carried it to my study, turned on the television to catch the morning news. Every channel was still covering it. Sacramento charity, fraud, scandal. Kyle and Alicia's faces plastered across screens, legal analysts discussing potential sentences. Federal prosecutors don't lose cases. Conviction rate above 94%, one analyst reminded viewers. I checked my phone. No messages from Kyle since last night's "I'll never forgive you." But there was a text from Gerald. Their lawyer called. Kyle and Alicia are flying to Las Vegas this afternoon, trying to get away from the media circus. FBI knows. Thought you should know. Running. Of course they were running. Not physically. They didn't have the resources or the courage for that. But fleeing Sacramento, fleeing the reporters camped outside their rental house, fleeing the neighbors who now knew what they'd done. I checked flight schedules. Reno Tahoe International Airport was closest to Sacramento. Most flights to Vegas would route through there. Around noon, Gerald called. Just heard from a contact at FBI Sacramento. They're making arrests today, Christmas Eve. They wanted to wait until after the holiday, but the media leak forced their hand. Can't let suspects run. Where? Airport, Reno Tahoe. Kyle and Alicia have tickets on a Southwest flight this afternoon. FBI will be waiting. I felt something tighten in my chest. What time? Flight's at 6:20 p.m. They'll make the arrest at the gate. Public, probably be filmed. Ronald, are you okay? Was I okay? My son was about to be arrested on national television on Christmas Eve. I'm fine, I said. After we hung up, I sat watching the lake. Ice had formed along the shoreline now, delicate crystals catching the afternoon light. Beautiful, peaceful, deceptive. At 4 o'clock, I couldn't resist anymore. Drove down to Reno. 45 minutes through mountain roads, past ski resorts decorated with Christmas lights, past families loading up cars for holiday trips. I parked in the airport garage and walked inside. The terminal was moderately busy. Holiday travelers, families heading to warm destinations, business people trying to get home before Christmas. I bought a coffee I didn't want, found a seat with a view of the Southwest gates. Waited. At 4:40, I saw them. Kyle and Alicia, walking through security. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, trying to hide. He looked haggard, pale, like he hadn't slept. They each carried a small rolling suitcase, running to Vegas with whatever they could pack quickly. They made it through security, headed toward their gate. I watched from a distance, hidden behind a newspaper. Alicia kept looking around nervously, jumping at every uniformed officer. Kyle walked like a man going to his execution, which in a way he was. They sat at gate B7. Alicia pulled out her phone, scrolled anxiously. Kyle just stared at nothing. At 5:10, 4 people in business casual approached them. I recognized the walk. Federal agents, you can always tell. That particular confidence, that purposeful stride. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the exact moment Kyle and Alicia realized what was happening. Kyle Cooper? Alicia Cooper? The lead agent's voice carried across the terminal. Alicia stood up so fast her phone clattered to the floor. Kyle went absolutely rigid, frozen. The agents showed their badges. FBI. You're both under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and violations of federal interstate commerce law related to the Light of Hope Foundation. Alicia's face went through a fascinating transformation. Shock to disbelief, to fury, to panic. All in about 3 seconds. She started to speak, voice rising. This is ridiculous. We haven't done anything. This is... Ma'am, please remain calm, the agent said. Professional. Firm. Kyle said nothing. Just stood there, swaying slightly like the ground had disappeared beneath him. The agent began reading them their Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Other passengers were staring now, phones coming out. Recording. Alicia saw the phones and something in her snapped. Stop recording! This is private! You can't... She turned to the agents. This is a mistake. My father-in-law did this. Ronald Cooper, he forged documents. He's lying because I... Mrs. Cooper, the agent interrupted. We have a federal warrant signed by a magistrate judge. This isn't a mistake. One of the other agents pulled out handcuffs. That's when it became real for them. I could see it in their faces. The handcuffs weren't symbolic, weren't theoretical. They were actual metal restraints that would actually go on their actual wrists. Please turn around, the agent instructed. Alicia's perfect facade shattered completely. Her voice went shrill, desperate. No, you don't understand. We were going to fix it. We were going to pay everything back. Kyle, tell them. Kyle finally spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. Dad knew. Somehow he knew. The agent cuffing him paused. Your father reported this? Kyle nodded, face crumpling. He turned us in. I watched as they clicked the handcuffs closed. Alicia was crying now. Loud, ugly sobs that had nothing to do with remorse, and everything to do with the public humiliation. The designer sunglasses had fallen off. Her hair was disheveled. The woman who'd spent 5 years cultivating an image of perfection looked utterly destroyed. Kyle just looked broken. Head down, shoulders slumped, utterly defeated. Someone in the crowd recognized them from the news. Oh my God, that's them! The charity scammers! More phones came out. Videos that would be on social media within minutes. The agents led them away, one hand on each of their elbows. Standard procedure. Professional. Efficient. Alicia kept turning back as if looking for escape. Kyle walked like a man in a dream. A nightmare. They passed within 15 feet of where I sat. Kyle looked up briefly, scanning the crowd, and his eyes landed on me. For one moment, we made eye contact. I saw it all in his face. Recognition. Understanding, betrayal, grief, rage, acceptance. He knew. He absolutely knew I'd come to watch. His mouth opened like he was going to say something, then closed. What was there to say? The agents kept moving, leading them toward a side exit where a federal vehicle would be waiting. I sat very still, coffee cold in my hands, watching them disappear. The terminal slowly returned to normal. Travelers went back to their phones, their books, their conversations. Within minutes, it was as if nothing had happened, except my son was in federal custody on Christmas Eve because of me. I drove back to Tahoe as the sun set. The sky turned orange and purple over the mountains, stunningly beautiful. Christmas lights twinkled in the windows of houses along the highway, families gathering, celebrations beginning. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Gerald. It's done, he said. They're in custody. Federal Detention Center in Reno. Arraignment scheduled for 3 days from now. Bail will almost certainly be denied. Flight risk. Access to stolen funds. Interstate nature of the crime. I know? Ronald, he paused. I hope this was worth it. I looked at my house. Dark. Empty. No decorations, no tree, no family waiting inside. So do I said. Inside, I poured myself a glass of wine. Sat in my study. Picked up a first edition Hammett, but couldn't focus on the words. Outside the window, snow began to fall. First snow of the season, drifting down soft and silent, covering the lake, the trees, the docks, making everything clean and white. I thought about Kyle in a cell somewhere in Reno. Cold concrete, harsh lights, the smell of industrial disinfectant. On Christmas Eve. I thought about Alicia, probably still crying, still insisting this was all a mistake, all someone else's fault. I thought about Lisa and Jacob, my grandchildren, with Alicia's mother, confused and scared, not understanding where their parents were. My phone buzzed. Text from Veronica. Saw the news. Arrests made. Are you all right? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Justice was served. That's what matters. But sitting alone in my study, watching snow fall on Christmas Eve, I wondered if that was really true. I'd won. The law had worked exactly as it should. Criminals had been caught, would be prosecuted, would face consequences. So why did it feel so much like losing? Christmas morning arrived silent and gray. I woke at 7:30, late for me, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in Reno, Kyle was waking up in a federal detention cell. First Christmas away from his children. First Christmas as a federal prisoner. I made coffee and sat in my study. The house felt too quiet, too big. For the first time since moving here, it felt less like a peaceful retreat and more like isolation. On the shelf above my desk sat a photograph I usually didn't look at too closely. Kyle at 5 years old, Christmas morning, holding up a red toy truck I'd saved up to buy him. His smile huge, genuine, full of pure joy. I picked up the photo, studied that little boy's face, tried to see where he'd become the man who'd help his wife steal from the homeless. My phone buzzed. Text from Gerald. First hearing scheduled for the day after tomorrow. They're staying in custody. Bail denied. Judge cited flight risk and access to undisclosed funds. Merry Christmas, I replied. Understood. Another text, this one from Veronica. Merry Christmas, Ronald. You did the right thing. I know that doesn't make it easier. I didn't respond. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I considered not answering, but something made me pick up. Mr. Cooper? A woman's voice, older, stressed. This is Dorothy Welch. Alicia's mother? I have Lisa and Jacob here with me. Alicia's mother, the children's other grandmother. Yes, I said carefully. Mr. Cooper, She paused. I heard children's voices in the background. I don't know what to do. The kids keep asking where their parents are. The news is everywhere. Lisa saw something online about arrests. I don't know how to explain this to them. I closed my eyes. Lisa was 12, old enough to understand. Jacob was 9, old enough to be scared. Tell them the truth, I said. Their parents made mistakes, bad choices with money. They're in trouble with the law now. But they're asking if they'll see them again, if they're safe, if, her voice cracked. Mr. Cooper, I'm 73 years old. I can't take care of 2 children long term. I don't have the energy, the resources. And with everything that's happening, I understand. Do you? Her tone sharpened. Because from what I hear, you're the one who did this. You turned in your own son, your own family. And now these children are suffering because of it, I could have argued. Could have explained that Kyle and Alicia chose to commit crimes, that I simply ensured consequences followed. Could have defended myself. Instead, I said, Mrs. Welch, are Lisa and Jacob safe? Are they fed? Warm? Of course they are. I'm not... Good. Keep them safe. I'll arrange for their long-term care. What do you mean? I'm going to petition for temporary custody. The children will come live with me. Silence. Then, you? You destroy their parents' lives, and then you want to take the children? I didn't destroy their lives. They did that themselves. But the children are innocent. They're my grandchildren, my blood, and they deserve stability. This is insane. This is reality, Mrs. Welch. Kyle and Alicia are facing federal prison time. Probably years. Someone needs to care for Lisa and Jacob. I have the means, the space, and the legal right as their paternal grandfather. Another long pause. Then quietly, they're good children. They don't deserve this. No, they don't. Which is why I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. After I hung up, I called Gerald. I need a family law attorney, the best one you know. I'm filing for emergency temporary custody of my grandchildren. Ronald, are you sure about this? You just sent their parents to prison. The optics alone. I don't care about optics. I care about Lisa and Jacob. They need stability, and they need it now. Can you help me, or not? He sighed. I'll make some calls. But Ronald, this is going to be complicated. The courts might question your motivations. Alicia's attorney could use this as evidence of malicious intent. Let them try. I have documentation proving I discovered the fraud recently and reported it immediately. My actions were about justice, not family disputes, and the children's welfare is a separate issue entirely. All right, I'll have someone contact you today, even on Christmas. Thank you. I spent the rest of the afternoon making lists, what Lisa and Jacob would need. Their schools would have to be transferred, medical records, therapy. They definitely need therapy after all this. Their bedrooms would need to be set up. The house had guest rooms, but they'd need to feel like home, not temporary spaces. At 4 in the afternoon, I went down to the second floor, into the 2 guest bedrooms I hadn't used in years, opened windows to air them out, assessed what furniture was there, what would need to be bought. Lisa's room could face the lake. She'd like that. Jacob's could have the view of the mountains. I'd need to ask them about colors, decorations. Let them make it their space. As I worked, my phone kept buzzing with news notifications. The arrest had made national coverage. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all running the story. Sacramento charity, founders arrested on Christmas Eve. Video of Kyle and Alicia in handcuffs at the airport, shared thousands of times on social media. I turned off notifications. Around 6, as darkness fell, I found myself in my workshop in the basement. My antique furniture restoration hobby. Half-finished projects scattered around. A Victorian writing desk, a mission-style bookshelf, an arts and crafts chair. On the workbench sat a small wooden toy chest I'd started months ago. No particular reason, just something to keep my hands busy. Now I had a reason to finish it. I worked until late, sanding, staining, ensuring every joint was perfect. Lisa and Jacob would need storage for toys, games, books. This would be a start. The physical work helped, focusing on something concrete, something I could control and perfect, unlike everything else in my life right now. At 10 o'clock, I went back upstairs, poured another glass of wine, stood at my study window, looking out at the lake. The snow had stopped. The world outside was pristine, untouched, like a blank slate. My phone lit up with a text, from Kyle's number, but not from Kyle. He wouldn't have phone access in detention. It was a photo, sent hours ago, just coming through now. Probably uploaded automatically to cloud storage before the arrest. Lisa and Jacob, Christmas morning, with Alicia's mother, trying to smile for the camera. But their eyes were red. They'd been crying. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I sat down and wrote an email to the family law attorney Gerald had recommended. I need to file for emergency temporary custody of my 2 grandchildren. Their parents are in federal custody, facing serious charges. The children need immediate stable placement. I have documentation of my financial stability, suitable living conditions, and ability to provide care. Please advise on next steps. Sent it, sat back. Thought about what came next. Legal battles, custody hearings, social services evaluations, explaining to Lisa and Jacob why their grandfather had turned in their parents, helping them understand that justice and love aren't opposites, that sometimes love means not letting people you care about destroy themselves and others. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Gerald. Family law attorney will call you first thing tomorrow. Merry Christmas, Ronald. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing with the kids. I looked around my empty house, at the photo of young Kyle with his toy truck, at the falling snow outside, at the wine glass in my hand. I'd won. Justice had been served. Kyle and Alicia would face consequences for their crimes. But I'd also lost my son. Maybe forever. The price of justice, I told myself. The cost of doing what's right. I just hoped it was worth it. Tomorrow I'd start the process of bringing Lisa and Jacob home. Tomorrow I'd begin rebuilding what Kyle and Alicia had destroyed. Tonight, though, I just sat in the dark, watching snow fall on the lake, wondering if I'd made the right choice, knowing I'd make the same choice again, but wishing desperately that I'd never had to make it at all. 3 days after Christmas, I sat in my study while Gerald attended the arraignment in Sacramento. I'd chosen not to go. Seeing Kyle in court, in shackles, wasn't something I needed to witness. I'd seen enough defendants over my career to know exactly how he'd look. Defeated, scared, smaller than he'd been in freedom. Gerald called me that afternoon. It went exactly as expected, he said. Judge Margaret Fillmore presiding, bail denied, flight risk due to interstate scheme and access to undisclosed funds. They're staying in custody until trial. What were the charges? 1 count conspiracy to commit money laundering, 2 counts charity fraud, 1 count interstate commerce violation, maximum 20 years federal prison, $500,000 in fines. 20 years. Kyle could be nearly 60 by the time he got out. How did they look? I asked despite myself. Gerald paused. Alicia looked like someone who'd never been told no before and couldn't process it. Prison orange doesn't suit her as well as designer clothes. Kyle, he looked broken, Ronald, kept his head down the whole time, wouldn't look at anyone. And the prosecutor? Bill Torres, young guy, sharp, laid out the evidence. Bank records showing systematic diversion of $523,000 from the nonprofit to personal accounts through shell companies. The judge actually looked disgusted. Said people who steal from charity donors deserve the full weight of the law. I felt a grim satisfaction at that. What's next? Preliminary hearing in 2 weeks. But Ronald, Their attorney approached me afterward, Shannon Clark. She wants to discuss a plea deal. Already? The evidence is airtight. She knows they can't win at trial. Federal conviction rate is over 94%, and this case is textbook money laundering. She's going to advise them to cooperate, plead guilty, hope for reduced sentences. How reduced? If Kyle fully cooperates and testifies about Alicia's role, maybe 4 to 6 years. Alicia organized the scheme, so she's looking at 8 to 10 minimum. Federal prison. Real prison. Not some minimum security club. Hard time with violent offenders, gang members, career criminals. My son, in federal prison. There's something else, Gerald said. Kyle asked if he could call you. One supervised call from the detention center. My chest tightened. When? Today. Around 3:40, if you want to take it. I looked at my watch. 2:15. An hour and a half to decide if I wanted to hear my son's voice from a federal jail cell. I'll take it, I said. The call came at exactly 3:40. An automated voice. You have a collect call from an inmate at Sacramento County Federal Detention Center. This call will be recorded and monitored. Press 1 to accept. I pressed 1. Dad? Kyle's voice was raw, like he'd been crying, or shouting, or both. I'm here. A long silence. I could hear him breathing. He stopped. Started again. I understand now. Why you did it. You couldn't just watch. No, I couldn't. Alicia kept saying you were vindictive, that you were punishing us for Thanksgiving. But that's not it, is it? No. Another silence. Then quietly, we stole from people who were trying to help homeless families, people who could barely afford to donate, and we used it to buy designer bags and expensive dinners. Yes. I told myself it was okay, that Alicia knew what she was doing, that nonprofits always pay their executives. But $500,000? His voice broke. We're monsters. I closed my eyes. You made terrible choices, but you're not a monster. Monsters don't feel remorse. The kids, he said suddenly. Where are they? With Alicia's mother for now, but I'm filing for temporary custody. They'll come live with me while you serve your time. A sound that might have been a sob. You'd do that? After what I did. They're my grandchildren. They're innocent. Someone needs to take care of them. Thank you. Barely a whisper. Dad, I ruined everything. Your reputation, the family name, everything you built. Stop. My voice came out harder than intended. Yes, you ruined things, but you can start fixing them. Cooperate with the prosecution. Take full responsibility. Show Lisa and Jacob that when you make mistakes, you face the consequences, like an adult. My lawyer says if I cooperate, I might get 4 years instead of 20. Then cooperate. That's still 4 years, 4 Christmases, 4 birthdays. Jacob will be 13 when I get out. Lisa will be 16. They'll have grown up without me. Yes, that's the price of what you did. Silence. Then, I know you'll never forgive me. I thought about that, about forgiveness, about justice, about whether the two could coexist. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly, but maybe that's not what matters right now. What matters is that you take responsibility, serve your time, and come out better than you went in. The automated voice cut in. You have 1 minute remaining. Kyle spoke fast. I'm going to cooperate. Tell them everything. And Dad, I know I have no right to ask, but will you bring the kids to visit me once they're settled with you? I thought about Lisa and Jacob seeing their father in prison, about the trauma, the questions, the pain, but also about them seeing him face his mistakes, about them learning that consequences are real, but family doesn't completely disappear. Yes, I said, when they're ready. Thank you. The line went dead. I sat holding the phone for a long time after, staring at nothing. Across the lake, I could see ice forming, winter settling in deep, everything frozen, waiting for spring. The custody hearing took 2 weeks to arrange. Social services came to inspect my house, verified I had adequate space, financial stability, no criminal record, good mental health. They interviewed me for 3 hours about my motivations, my relationship with my grandchildren, my plans for their care. Mr. Cooper, the social worker said, a woman named Patricia Chen, you understand that you reported your son and daughter-in-law for federal crimes. Some might question whether taking custody of their children is appropriate. Some might, I agreed, but Lisa and Jacob need stability. I'm their grandfather. I have the means and the willingness to provide a safe, loving home. Their parents' crimes don't change my love for them. She made notes. And you're prepared for the challenges? They'll be traumatized, angry, confused. I'm prepared. A week and a half after New Year's, Lisa and Jacob moved into my house. Dorothy Welch, Alicia's mother, drove them up from Sacramento. She was cold when she handed them over. Barely spoke to me. Can't say I blamed her. The children looked small, standing in my entryway with their suitcases. Lisa, 12, dark hair like Kyle's. Serious eyes, watched me warily. Jacob, 9, Alicia's features but softer. Just looked lost. This is your home now, I told them. Your rooms are upstairs. You can decorate them however you want. Make them yours. Lisa's voice was sharp. For how long? Until our parents get out? We'll figure that out together. For now, you're safe here. That first week was brutal. Lisa cried at night. I could hear her through the walls. Jacob barely spoke, just wandered the house like a ghost. They picked at their food, avoided eye contact, treated me like a jailer. I didn't force conversation, just maintained routine. Breakfast at 8. School, I'd enrolled them at South Lake Tahoe Elementary and Middle School. Dinner at 6. Homework. Reading before bed. On the 4th night, Jacob appeared at my study door. Why did you do it? He asked. No preamble. I set down my book. Your parents broke the law, stole money from people who were trying to help others. I couldn't let that continue. But they're your family. Yes, and that made it harder. But love doesn't mean letting people hurt others. He thought about that. Do you still love my dad? Yes. Then why did you send him to prison? Because sometimes loving someone means holding them accountable. Your dad made bad choices. Now he has to face the consequences. But that doesn't mean I stopped caring about him, or about you. Jacob nodded slowly, didn't say anything else. But the next morning he ate his full breakfast. 2 weeks into January came the sentencing hearing. Kyle and Alicia had both agreed to plea deals, full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentences. Gerald attended, called me afterward with the results. Kyle got 4 years, Alicia got 8. Plus they each owe $261,500 in restitution, half the stolen funds. 4 years, 8 years, real numbers, real time. How did they take it? Kyle looked relieved it wasn't 20. Alicia looked like she still couldn't believe this was happening to her. The judge was harsh, called it a betrayal of public trust. Said people who exploit charity deserve every day of their sentences. And after, they're being transferred to federal prisons. Kyle to FCI Lompoc, Alicia to FCI Dublin, both in California at least. You can visit. After we hung up, I told Lisa and Jacob that evening. We were eating dinner, pasta, something simple. Your parents were sentenced today, I said. Your dad got 4 years. Your mom got 8. Lisa's fork clattered to her plate. 8 years? Yes. That means, she was calculating, I'll be 20 when she gets out. Jacob will be 17. Yes, she started crying. Not the quiet crying of night, loud, angry sobs. This is your fault. You did this to them. I didn't argue. Let her cry. Let her be angry. She was 12. Her world had collapsed. She had a right to rage. Jacob just sat there, frozen. Eventually, Lisa ran upstairs, slammed her door. Jacob looked at me. Did they do it? What you said? Yes. Did they steal from poor people? They stole from people who were trying to help poor people. Yes. He nodded, went back to his pasta. The next morning, Lisa came downstairs, red-eyed but calmer. Grandpa? First time she'd called me that. Mom called last night, from prison. She said you betrayed them, that you forged documents because you were mad about Thanksgiving. I met her eyes. That's not true. Every document I submitted was real, verified by professional investigators. The FBI wouldn't have arrested them without solid evidence. But she said, your mother is trying to make herself feel better by blaming me. I understand that. But it doesn't change the facts. She and your dad stole over $500,000. That's why they're in prison. Lisa studied my face. Do you hate them? No. I'm disappointed. Angry at their choices. But I don't hate them. Do you hate us? Never. You're children. None of this is your fault. Something in her face cracked. She started crying again, but different this time. Not angry, just sad. Grieving. I stood, awkward, then pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, sobbing. Jacob joined us. The three of us stood in my kitchen, holding each other while my grandchildren mourned their parents' catastrophic mistakes. The weeks turned into months. Routine established itself. School runs, homework help. Lisa joined the school volleyball team. Jacob started playing soccer. I drove them to practices, sat in cold bleachers watching them play, cheered when they scored. We visited Kyle once a month at Lompoc, 3-hour drive south. The visits were awkward. 30 minutes in a visitation room with guards watching, stilted conversation, long silences. But Kyle was sober in a way I'd never seen him, taking classes, in therapy, actually dealing with his weaknesses. Alicia we visited less. Lisa wanted to go. Jacob didn't. I let them choose. In early spring, snow melting, lake beginning to thaw, Lisa asked me about Thanksgiving. What did Mom say to you? That made you turn them in? I'd wondered when this would come. She called me an annoying old man, said I was boring, told me not to bother coming to Christmas because the kids wanted a real holiday. Lisa winced. That's harsh. Yes. Is that why you reported them? No. I reported them because I discovered they were committing federal crimes. The Thanksgiving incident just made me start looking more closely at things that hadn't added up. But if she hadn't said those things, I might not have investigated. But eventually, someone would have caught them. The FBI, the IRS, a donor who got suspicious. Better it was me, someone who cares about minimizing harm to you and Jacob, than a stranger who wouldn't care about protecting you. She thought about that. Mom says you'll never forgive them. Maybe not. I don't know yet. But I'm still here, still taking care of you, still letting them call. That's something. Is it enough? I smiled sadly. We'll find out. One morning in early April, I sat in my study. Lisa was at the table doing homework. Jacob was outside playing with the dog I'd gotten them, a golden retriever named Scout. The lake was bright with sunlight, ice completely gone, water sparkling blue and clean. My phone rang. Veronica. How's Grandpa life treating you? She asked. Better than I expected. The kids are adapting. We're figuring it out. Any regrets? I watched Jacob throw a ball for Scout, watched the dog bound after it joyfully, heard Lisa humming while she worked on her math. Every day, I said honestly, but I'd make the same choice again. That's the hardest kind of regret. Yes? We talked a bit more. After I hung up, Lisa looked up from her homework. Grandpa, can you help with this algebra problem? Of course, sweetheart. Let me see. I stood, walked over to her table, looked at the problem, started explaining how to solve it. Through the window, Jacob's laughter rang out as Scout licked his face. Outside, spring was coming to Lake Tahoe. Ice melting, new growth beginning, life continuing despite everything. I'd destroyed my son's freedom to preserve justice. I'd lost my family to save my grandchildren. I'd chosen law over blood, and I'd do it again. Because some things matter more than comfort. Some prices must be paid. Some sacrifices are necessary. Justice cost me my son, but it gave me the chance to save my grandchildren from growing up thinking crime has no consequences. That family loyalty means protecting wrongdoing. That money matters more than integrity. That was a price I could live with. The only price I could live with. Outside, Jacob called, Grandpa, come throw the ball with us. Lisa looked up from her math. You should go. I can finish this myself. I smiled, ruffled her hair gently. I'll be right back to check your work. Walked outside into the spring sunshine, threw the ball for Scout, listened to Jacob's laughter, felt the warmth of the sun on my face and the cold certainty in my heart that I'd made the right choice. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't even peace. But it was justice. And justice, I'd learned over 67 years, was often all we get. If you liked this story, please like this video and subscribe to the Cold Revenge channel, as the Sweet Revenge channel will soon cease to exist. Also, share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the field on the left. Thank you for watching.